we're gonna talk about a pretty exciting tool within generative AI, and it bridges the gap between text and words, and not just images, but video. And so for this episode, we are going to cover Runway and not just review the tool itself, but start to dive in, and you'll notice how I mix and match a couple of generative AI tools. Let's get started. If you want to check out Runway, you can go to runwayml.com. Yes, domains are getting more and more complicated as a lot of these new technologies emerge, and people seem to be still championing for the .com. With Runway, it looks like they have a lot of products. So a bunch of different tools and technology that you can use with generative AI. I don't know a lot about this. So I came in at Gen 2. It looks like they have a Gen 1. Here you can also see they can convert text to image to image. One use case that I saw that was pretty neat is also image to text, something that continues to increase in popularity around internet accessibility is putting alt tags or alt text on images. So in the event that somebody can't see, then their screen reader could actually process what that image is. And so I believe that a day is coming where instead of expecting developers or team members to manually write that text so that images can convert to text and then screen readers can have an easier time. But that thought also makes me wonder, might there be a day where you don't have to actually use those types of like metadata, but an AI could actually process what it sees and real time convert that for people who can't see. A lot of neat possibilities there. We're gonna go in. I think what captured my attention first with Gen 2 was no lights, no camera, all action. And as you start to scroll through Runway's experience, you'll notice a lot of different clips and videos. If you click over into Gen 2 specifically, they have a landing page just for their Gen 2 product. I was able to see many different clips and GIFs. They give you the prompt and then show you the result. Right here, we can see how you can convert text to video. They also have some of you provide an image, it then animates it. One that was particularly fascinating was on the left side, you'll notice that they had done a video here walking through what is very clearly a like stubbed out, just some like notebooks and a very rough concept. And it looks like the Gen 2 was able to convert it into a cityscape. Right, so then instead of notebooks, it's buildings. Instead of the stickers, it's streets. So pretty clever. I've seen a few samples online of people doing this, and I've wondered for a while of, okay, well, what'd you use and how'd you do that? I don't think that Runway was the tool they used at the time, but it looks like Runway has those capabilities as well. Also, you'll notice here, pretty cute, they put some polka dots on a dog and made it a Dalmatian. If you look closely, you'll notice pretty heavy granularity, and it's not perfect, but that's not what these tools promise to be. So many of these tools are in research mode, and so a lot of what you get isn't production quality, but you can start to see where over time these things can really take shape. I remember growing up back in the video game era of Nintendo 64, playing NFL Blitz, which was a hugely popular game. I look at it now and I'm thinking, how did we know those were football players? It looks so pixelated, but it's very much, you know, where things start. What comes to mind is the video game Assassin's Creed, which was one of the first ones that I saw that where I couldn't really tell if it was computer generated or if it was reality. All right, so this is Gen 2. I immediately jumped over and started testing things out. In some of my playing around, what I noticed was it does a lot better of a job with nature. I asked for a big wave with a surfer. Runway gives you the option to get some previews of the images, and then you can pick the preview and generate off of that sample. So in this example of a surfer on a wave, what you'll notice, and I'll zoom in here to get a little bit closer, is only one of them is anywhere close to being something that looks like a person on a board surfing a wave. You know, this one is interesting. The bottom right is interesting because it does look like it's a person on a board, but the wave doesn't go that way, right? The wave is under the board. It's not, the wave and the spray is under the board, not off. So I was able to generate this. It's just not great, right? So I'm gonna show you, if I look at this picture or this video as it's playing, the wave itself is pretty impressive and it looks like a wave, and I can look deeply into a couple points and I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. The surfer, however, is indistinguishable. You can't really tell what's going on there. Maybe you could assume that there's a surfer, but as the frames play out, it's pretty clear that that's not actually a surfer. And even that board, you wonder, like, is it a board or is it part of the water or is it an item in the water? As I saw this, I realized, okay, well, maybe nature is better than a lot of the human renders. And so let me play around with a few more prompts. First, let me see how bad it can be at humans. And so I asked for a skateboarder doing a backflip. And this is what it gave me. It looks like two skateboarders who may or may not be wearing rollerblades and then merged together without a head. Pretty big miss. All right, yes, I think my suspicion is confirmed. Humans are a tough nut to crack, but let me go in the other direction. Let me get something that is really just some mix of nature and or just things in the physical world. So my prompt was a massive explosion in the middle of an empty desert. Here you go, an explosion. And you look at that and you may think, okay, there's a couple things that seem off, right? It looks like there's some, artifact or burst that's happening. Is it almost like the sun? Is that the sun streaking across the sky? I'm not sure, but if you squint, or if this is a small enough image, then yeah, that looks like an explosion. If you told me something blew up in the Nevada desert, I think I'm in the ballpark of believing. So let's go a little bit deeper. I asked for a volcano erupting. Living in Hawaii these days, and so we have some active volcanoes, actually one active volcano in Hawaii, but most of these islands have been formed out of volcanic rock. And so, just curious what we could come up with. I see a lot of pictures of volcano and lava, and yeah, not really what I would expect. I think the mountain though is pretty close to something that looks believable. The skyline actually looks like a beautiful sunset, so that checks out. So I took another iteration. I asked for lava flowing into the ocean. Okay, not very realistic from where the lava is flowing and how it's flowing, but one thing I want to call out is the specific details in the water, the waves crashing, the fact that it knew to combine these things. There's definitely some type of judgment happening around how this gets put together. And also it's just pretty cool. It's not just a static image. It is some form of a video, though maybe not believable. I could see it serving as potentially B-roll or something that's happening in the background as a background image with some more perhaps live, real foreground activity. Seems very believable. Okay, now I had asked for a prompt, and this is where I started to, try to blend the two a little bit. And, could I get maybe a real person that there's probably a lot of training data on this? And the prompt here was for a boy who was eating an ice cream cone and holding a balloon in the other hand. That's what I asked for. And this was one of the first prompts that I submitted that I got a rejection. It said, hey, there's a violation here. We're not going to generate anything for you. So I didn't accept that. And I tried again and similarly got rejected. And I wondered, okay, what about this? And maybe it doesn't take too much imagination to wonder what about this prompt could have triggered something in the content moderation. And so that's when I switched gears and I went over to Discord and started seeing, okay, could I get Midjourney, right? So Discord is the way that you interface with Midjourney. Midjourney is an image generative AI. It's one of the best ones I've seen. You give it a text prompt, it gives you back some images. And so I gave it the same prompt, and actually where it started was here. Right? 3 options. And I was like, okay, well, these look innocent enough. And I started to refine based on what they gave me. And so at first I clicked the top right image and got a couple of different variations. One thing I noticed though was that it doesn't seem to understand the concept of an ice cream cone, or maybe ice cream cones in and of themselves. That's not a really clear prompt. Perhaps I could have said a sugar cone or a waffle cone. So I got a couple more versions. Midjourney did start to blend the balloon and the ice cream, right? Even some small artifacts like this, and it just makes me wonder, wow, clearly it doesn't really understand what I'm asking, but it's taking the information that it has and what it's been trained on to get me something close. The great news is with a few iterations and a couple of variations, I was able to triangulate toward this little gentleman in the top right and get a pretty refined image of a boy with an ice cream cone. So now what I'm gonna do, instead of expecting to ask for a prompt and get the video, what I have done was I have taken the boy and I have uploaded it into Gen 2, Runway's Gen 2, and I have asked it to animate the kid dropping the ice cream. I'm not paying for Gen 2, and so I am limited based on how many seconds of video it will give me, but let's see if it will, now that it has an actual baseline image, be able to circumvent this suspension filter, this suspension threat, and the moderation filter. Runway does have a free version. They give you a number of credits. I believe it's based on the number of seconds of the video that you're trying to generate. I'm noticing I'm burning through my credits pretty quickly. It does not look like on the free plan you can just refresh your number of credits, but definitely gives you enough to play with, and sign up is super easy and very straightforward process, no credit card required, where you can start playing around with Runway. And it looks like even with a source image provided and a little bit of a prompt, it still seems to be violating some content moderation guidelines. Again, these tools are under development, and so it feels weird to me that you couldn't, do something with the boy holding the cone. If I had a little bit more time, I would dive into, okay, is it that it's a child and it's being very sensitive about creating images with children, which is great as a parent. I think that's an awesome direction. This does start to touch on the potential of moderation. And it's not just about, these companies are taking a level of responsibility beyond just training these models, but putting a moderation filter on the front end to make sure that these models are not being used for malicious or inappropriate means, which is pretty great. I think to have a level of social responsibility. I think as in all things, there will probably be a swing to the completely unrestricted, unmoderated version, right? It makes sense that the internet would produce something like that. And then of course, others will race to the other extreme and say, hey, this is the version that's safe for the whole family. It looks like Runway is erring on the side of safety, especially in these early days. But there you have it, using Runway to convert text into images, and a couple different variations of what it seems to do pretty well, where it struggles, and also a little information about how you can get started at no cost using Runway.